My whole life is focused on keeping her as well as I possibly can. I've had to give up my film career.
At 85, Chuck Norris is looking back on his life as a martial artist. But in a move that left his fans thrilled, the legend just revealed the names of 4 fighters he absolutely can't stand. And we're not talking friendly rivals. These guys seriously messed with his legacy, pride, and maybe even his heart. So why is Chuck speaking out now, after all these years? And what did these fighters do to make his hate list? Stick around as we reveal the jaw-dropping reasons behind grudges Chuck Norris never let go of. The rise of a martial arts legend. When people hear the name Chuck Norris, they think of the unbeatable action hero, the tough guy who could take down a dozen bad guys without breaking a sweat. But long before the jokes, movies, and television fame, Chuck Norris was just a regular kid named Carlos Ray Norris, born on March 10, 1940, in Ryan, Oklahoma. According to his biography, Chuck's early life was anything but easy. His mother, Wilma, was of Irish descent, and his father, Ray D. Norris, claimed Cherokee ancestry. Chuck was the oldest of 3 boys. From the start, life threw tough challenges at the Norris family. Chuck's father was a heavy drinker and spent most of his time away from home. When Chuck was just 16 years old in 1956, his parents officially divorced. His mother became the rock of the family, working multiple jobs to support her sons and move them to California in search of a better life. The conditions he survived before fame will shock you. Keep what tossing to find out. Growing up, Chuck wasn't the athletic kid you might imagine. In one of his autobiographies, he described himself as shy, awkward, and not particularly good at sports. In 1958, when Chuck turned 18, he made a decision that would change his life. He joined the United States Air Force. Not long after he joined the force, he was sent to Osan Air Base in South Korea, a country recovering from the Korean War and still filled with tension. During his year of work as an Air Force personnel, Chuck worked as an air policeman, patrolling the base and keeping order. But it was during these long, quiet hours in a foreign land that something life-changing happened. While stationed at Osan, Chuck was introduced to Tang Soo Do, a Korean martial art that blended punches, kicks, and self-defense moves. He began training under Master Shin Jae-chul, and it didn't take long for Chuck to realize that he had a natural talent for it. But something happened that snagged his life for Eve. Keep watching to find out. By the time his service ended in 1962, Chuck had already earned a black belt in Tang Soo Do and returned to the United States a different man. No longer that shy, insecure kid, Chuck was determined to continue his martial arts journey. Back home in California, Chuck took whatever jobs he could find to make ends meet. He worked as a karate instructor and even opened his karate schools. His first school opened in Torrance, California in 1963. Although he was the principal of the school, however, earning money was tight, and in those early years, Chuck would sometimes sleep on the floor of his dojos just to keep them running. But students began to notice his skill and the no-nonsense attitude he brought to his teaching. In early 1964, Chuck started competing in local karate tournaments. At first, he lost more matches than he won. He later admitted that those defeats stung badly. But instead of quitting, he trained harder. He traveled, learned different fighting techniques, and studied his opponents. Slowly, Chuck began to improve. Then, in 1968, everything changed.
My motivation to become a competitor was to hopefully win some local tournaments and get right up in the local.
Chuck Norris won the professional middleweight karate champion title, a title he would hold for 6 consecutive years.
Chuck won the World Karate Championship title 6 times in a row and retired from competition undefeated in 1974.
Winning this championship wasn't just about trophies or titles. It was about earning respect in the martial arts world. Around this time, something unexpected happened that would push Chuck's career in a new direction. Keep watching. We are about to unveil it. During a tournament in 1968, Chuck was lucky to have an encounter with Bruce Lee. At that time, Bruce was already a martial arts legend who had made a name for himself. After their short encounter, the two connected instantly. Their friendship grew, and soon Bruce invited Chuck to appear in one of his films. In 1972, Chuck made his big screen debut alongside Bruce Lee in Way of the Dragon. In this movie, Chuck played the role of Colt, a deadly American martial artist hired to take down Bruce Lee's character, Tang Lung. Luckily for Chuck, the movie happened to be the greatest martial arts movie of the year. It wasn't just the choreography that made the scene unforgettable. It was the intensity. Both men were at the top of their game. The fight was a perfect mix of speed, strength, and strategy, and audiences loved it. Even though Chuck played the villain and ultimately lost the fight, his performance turned heads, which opened him up to other Hollywood actors. After Way of the Dragon, Chuck started receiving offers to star in his movies. But the road to becoming a star wasn't overnight. His first leading role came in Breaker in 1977. While the movie itself didn't become a massive hit, it introduced Norris as a believable action hero, a man who didn't need special effects or flashy costumes to take down the bad guys. Then, in 1978, Chuck starred in Good Guys Wear Black, a political action thriller that performed well at the box office and officially put Chuck on Hollywood's radar. Before the end of the 1980s, Chuck had established himself as one of the biggest names in martial arts films. Remember that in 1980, he starred in The Octagon, a film about a martial artist battling a group of deadly ninjas. The movie's success confirmed what everyone already suspected. And after the movie, Chuck was no longer just a karate champion. He was a full-blown movie star. And though his martial arts championships and breakout film roles had turned Chuck Norris into a star by the early 1980s, this was just the beginning. Stick around because what came next would transform him from a popular action hero into a household name. Fame, fame, and politics. Chuck's involvement in politics kicked off in the 1980s when he publicly supported Ronald Reagan. At the time, Reagan was a popular figure in Hollywood and the White House, but you know what it means to align with conservative politics in the entertainment industry. Still, Chuck made it clear he admired Reagan's strength, patriotism, and tough stance on crime and national defense. Chuck believed in old-school values like hard work. During an interview with Chuck, he expressed how he felt America was losing its moral foundation. He blamed rising crime rates, a decline in family values, and what he called political correctness for weakening the country. His fans loved him for it, seeing Chuck as a real-deal patriot who wasn't afraid to speak the truth. But critics saw something else, a celebrity using his fame to push divisive ideas. That's not all. One of the biggest controversies in Chuck's public life came in 2008 during the heated debate over California's Proposition 8. This was a statewide ballot measure that aimed to ban same-sex marriage by defining marriage strictly as a union between a man and a woman. The proposition deeply divided the country, with celebrities, politicians, and everyday people taking sides.
Two people who wanted to get married in California sued and the state of California to say that Proposition 8 was unconstitutional.
For Chuck Norris, he made it clear where he stood. He supported Proposition 8 and openly endorsed it, arguing that traditional marriage was a core part of American society and should be protected. He wrote opinion pieces and gave interviews explaining his stance, saying it wasn't about hate, but about upholding the values he believed in. But this time, the backlash was fierce. LGBTQ+ advocacy groups and progressive organizations called Chuck's views outdated, harmful, and discriminatory. Protests erupted outside events he attended, and social media, which by then was gaining massive influence, lit up with criticism. Some fans turned their backs on him, while others defended his right to free speech. Either way, Chuck had crossed a line in the eyes of many in Hollywood and the wider public. Although this wasn't the only issue that made Chuck a target for criticism. Keep watching to find out more. Around the same time, debates about gun rights, terrorism, and America's role in the Middle East were everywhere. Chuck, being a longtime supporter of the military and the Second Amendment, frequently voiced his opinions. He criticized what he called weak policies on national defense and was a loud supporter of America's fight against terrorism after the 9/11 attacks in 2001. As if that weren't enough controversy, Chuck's hit TV series Walker, Texas Ranger became another flashpoint. The show, which premiered in 1993, was a massive success. But while fans adored the show, critics had a different view. Some complained about the show's simple good versus evil storylines and over-the-top fight scenes. Others accused it of glorifying violence and promoting a dangerous image of law enforcement. There were also accusations that the show leaned too heavily into conservative themes, while the progressive critics argued that this kind of storytelling ignored the real complexities of law enforcement and justice in America. Chuck, however, wasn't bothered by the criticism. In interviews, he defended Walker, Texas Ranger, saying it was a family show with strong moral messages. He insisted the program promoted honor, courage, and doing the right thing, values he believed were sorely lacking in modern entertainment. Beyond the show, Chuck kept his name in the headlines by weighing in on hot-button topics. He supported conservative politicians like George W. Bush and Mike Huckabee, campaigned against what he saw as liberal overreach in schools and the media, and even spoke out about what he believed were threats to religious freedom in America. Chuck warned about the dangers of moral decline and secularism, claiming it would tear apart the country if left unchecked. Naturally, all this made Chuck a favorite on conservative news networks like Fox News, where he appeared as a guest and contributor over the years. But it also made him a regular target for comedians, late-night hosts, and internet jokes. Chuck's tough guy image and bold opinions became the stuff of memes and viral videos, with people either mocking or celebrating his larger-than-life persona. That's not all. In 2009, Chuck stirred controversy when he questioned whether President Barack Obama was born in the United States. He called on Obama to publicly share his birth certificate to put the growing rumors to rest.
claiming that President Obama wasn't born in the United States, and that renders his orders illegal.
Around that same time, Chuck continued sharing bold political opinions, writing about the dangers of Sharia law in America, and criticizing the Obama administration for what he believed was an attempt to change long-standing traditions within the Boy Scouts. Over the years, Chuck openly backed a long list of Republican candidates, including Ron Paul, Newt Gingrich, Mitt Romney, and Ted Cruz. He didn't shy away from supporting controversial figures either, throwing his support behind Roy Moore, a candidate facing serious public backlash, and even voicing his approval for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In 2019, Chuck made headlines once again when he partnered with Glock, the well-known firearms company. The move rubbed some fans the wrong way, especially given the rise in school shootings and heated debates about gun control happening in the country at the time. Then, in 2021, Chuck spoke out in favor of the campaign to remove California Governor Gavin Newsom from office. He backed Larry Elder, a conservative talk show host, as Newsom's replacement. Through it all, Chuck stayed consistent with his beliefs, remaining outspoken and sticking to his views, whether or not the public agreed with him. What made Chuck different from other celebrities wasn't just that he had opinions, it was how unapologetically he shared them. He didn't back down from controversy. When asked if he regretted supporting Proposition 8 or his public political stances, Chuck always said no. In his mind, standing up for what you believe in was more important than staying popular. He once said in an interview that he has always believed that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. By the late 2000s and into 2010s, Chuck's political voice quieted a little as he focused more on personal projects, writing, and spending time with his family. But the mark he left both as a beloved action star and a controversial public figure was undeniable. He had carved out a space for himself in American culture as both a fearless hero on screen and a polarizing voice off it. And while some fans stayed loyal and others drifted away, Chuck Norris remained exactly who he'd always been, a man unafraid of a fight, whether it was in a tournament ring, on a TV set, or in the messy world of politics and public opinion. Thank you for staying with us. What do you think about Chuck Norris? Share your opinions with us in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the following video on your screen, and you will enjoy it.